SpongeGex here, and well, after about 2 years, I'm down to my last Walt Disney Treasures DVD review, with the remaining shorts of the Donald Duck DVDs. Let's start this off with Beezy Bear. Donald is a beekeeper and reports to his neighbor, Ranger Woodlore, that a bear is trying to steal his honey.
Why are you always wet? You bathe too much. Yoo-hoo!
With Humphrey being the culprit.
Here's your honey. Give me that. You take too many baths.
That basically sums up the plot of this short. Humphrey keeps trying to get honey without getting caught or stung. It's a simple but silly short, 7 out of 10. Wet paint. Donald tries painting his car, but a bird steps on the paint and messes up Donald's work, because Donald just isn't allowed to have nice things, I guess. And I thought a bird pooping on your car was the worst they could do. Donald angrily chases the bird up a tree, ready to exit, until he realizes the bird's a mother, and he chuckles over the babies taking a liking to him. Cute ending, but it's a pretty average short, 5 out of 10. Wide open spaces. An exhausted Donald tries checking into a motel, but gets angry over the $16 fine. I know times are different back then, but dang, $16 for an outdoor bed sounds great, compared to over $100 for a room like most cheaper hotels. Donald drives off and tries sleeping outdoors on an inflatable mattress, but many distractions keep him awake. This was like the third short to feature Donald struggling to go to sleep. In a weird incident, Donald's mattress gets overinflated by a tree, and it flings him back to the hotel, as the hotel runner thinks Donald changed his mind overnight and charges him $16 for the stay, and tells him his time is up and kicks him out. A pretty basic short, but it has some okay gags, 5 out of 10. Working for Peanuts. Fun fact, this was originally aired as a 3D animated short. Unfortunately, there has never been a re-release of this short with the 3D effects intact, so it's hard to say how this film would have worked as a 3D short. Man, I miss 3D films. I used to have a Sony 3D monitor back when PS3 gained 3D support. Too bad it died out way too fast. The batteries for the 3D glasses died, and Sony doesn't make the glasses necessary to work anymore, so I have no way of watching my 3D Blu-rays anymore. I wish they would revive 3D films with VR headsets and add 3D versions of films and shorts to streaming services. I would gladly buy an Oculus Quest if Disney Plus announced 3D VR support for their movies that originated in 3D. It was so cool seeing movies like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast in 3D. You have to see it to understand how fun it really looks. Anyways, this is a Chip 'n Dale short where they sneak into a zoo for peanuts, but Donald and the elephant Dolores fight Chip 'n Dale away from Dolores' peanuts. In the end, Chip and Dale disguise themselves as albino chipmunks, and Donald takes them in as the zoo's newest additions, and Chip and Dale trick their way into getting peanuts. How racist. They don't let in brown chipmunks, but when they're white chipmunks, oh, that's fine. A rare case where the chipmunks win without Donald having a punishing ending. It's a cute and fun short, 7 out of 10. Now here are the World War II Donald Duck shorts. They're pretty outdated, but they still have some hilarious moments and are important to US history. The first one is Donald gets drafted, as Donald heads off to join the army, while we hear a catchy song that gives off false promises to those who join the army. Kind of ironic. I mean, this was a short that was made for soldiers, yet it almost feels like the makers of the short are trying to make them feel like they just got ripped off or screwed. Donald wants to join the army just so he can fly a plane. Donald gets drafted, but is tired of doing nothing but marching and following the sergeant's orders. His drill instructor is Pete, and as usual, the pitting of Donald versus Pete is hilarious. Donald is a slip-up, and the short ends with Donald being forced to peel potatoes as punishment.
Don't move a muscle, see?
It's a fun and hilarious war cartoon, 7 out of 10. The Vanishing Private. Not only is this one of my favorite World War II cartoons, but it's also one of my favorite Donald Duck shorts. I know this is one of my best friend's favorite Donald Duck shorts as well. In this cartoon, Private Donald is forced to paint a tank to camouflage it, but he paints it to be too noticeable, and Pete instructs him to paint it so the enemy can't see it. Donald stumbles upon invisible paint.
The cannon! It's gone! A fifth colonist! He stole our cannon!
Donald accidentally gets the paint on himself and starts messing with Pete in very hilarious scenes.
Here we go round the mulberry bush. Good morning, General. Did you see a little guy that you can't see? What's this? Blow you apart!
Pete starts looking crazy as he rants on about an invisible guy and gets arrested in the end as Donald guards his cell.
Just a minute, man.
He can't make a fool out of me!
Do you mean the little man you can't see?
He's around here skipping rope! I'll get him!
There's no one here.
Oh, there he is!
There's nobody there.
He's right behind you!
No, it's only
Let me at him! Let me at him! Go tell the General that I ain't crazy.
I can't help but laugh whenever I see this one. It's just too funny. 9 out of 10. Sky Trooper. This one feels like a direct sequel to Donald Gets Drafted, for it opens up with Donald peeling potatoes and crying that he still wants to fly. Pete lies to Donald that he can fly after peeling potatoes. Instead, Pete tricks Donald onto a plane to be a paratrooper. Pete tries throwing Donald out of the plane, but they both end up falling out with a missile in their hands, bombing the general's office, and they are both forced to peel more potatoes. Not as good as the first two war shorts, but it's still amusing. 5 out of 10. The Fuhrer's Face, the most infamous World War II short. Now, this is the short that a bunch of pathetic reviewers would post saying something like, "Oh my god, did you know Walt Disney made a short where Donald Duck was a Nazi?" Now, I'm not going to try to lie to you about the short for clickbait. This is a short where Donald has a nightmare that he's trapped by Hitler and forced to work at his missile factory. The short opens up with a comical song where caricatures of Hitler's allies praise him.
Yahweh is the Superman.
Super duper Superman!
The whole short is made to exaggerate and have a comical take on how horrible it would be to be enslaved to work for a dictator like Hitler. We see Donald is giving nothing to eat. He's forced to assemble way too many shells at once, while being forced to Heil Hitler every time a photo of Hitler is sent down the conveyor belt. He gets no vacations and is given too much overtime. Donald goes nuts, only to wake up to a room dedicated to the United States of America, and Donald is thankful to be part of the USA. It makes both a great political message while managing to be hilarious as well. This is also the only Donald Duck short to win an Academy Award. I love this short. 8 out of 10.
Right in the Führer's face! Show me Heil!
Fall Out, Fall In. Donald has trouble setting up his tent and misses out on supper and gets no sleep. It's not my favorite war cartoon, but it does seem to have the highest animation quality out of all the World War II Donald shorts, along with funny facial expressions. 5 out of 10. The Old Army Game. This is the second funniest World War II cartoon after The Vanishing Private. It's got some dark moments, though. Pete finds out Donald snuck out, and he hides in Donald's bed to catch him returning from the act.
Sure put it over on the Sarge. Yeah, it's me.
Donald hides in a box, and Pete kicks it out of frustration, grinding it against a fence, and the two are convinced that Donald got sliced in half in a dark yet hilarious moment.
Where is it? It's all my fault. No, please. Over there, behind the bushes.
This short just cracks me up hard. 8 out of 10. Home Defense. Donald is an admiral on home defense with his nephews as his gun crew. Because kids were allowed in wars back then or something? I don't know. The boys use a toy plane to mess with Donald while he sleeps on the job. Donald thinks he spots a bomber plane and takes to action. Donald mistakes falling gingerbread men as paratroopers, and he takes cover as the boys imitate sounds of gunfire. As Donald realizes he was tricked, he takes their weapons and terminates them from the force. As Donald picks up the sounds of a bee buzzing around his speakers, Donald thinks a bomber is upon them, and he rehires the boys back to their post to shoot down the enemy that isn't really there. The cannon gets aimed right at Donald's speaker. The nephews try warning him, but Donald tells them to fire, as Donald's eardrums get blasted as the explosion blasts through his headphones. Meh, I feel like I've seen plots like this done much better and funnier in other cartoons. It's not terrible, but it's not the best war cartoon either. 5 out of 10. Commando Duck. Donald paratroops down a river and is to keep watch for snipers and other dangers and take them out. The short has some very outdated depictions of Japanese soldiers, but hey, it was dark times for America, and making fun of the enemy was their way of boosting American morale at the time. As Donald escapes the snipers by falling down a waterfall, a mishap with his raft causes it to overflow like a water balloon, and it explodes, wiping out all of the Japanese enemies in a pretty comical way. This is a very outdated short, but it's still action-packed, well animated, and has some funny gags. For Donald's last war cartoon, it was nice to see him as a slip-up hero, but too bad he still never got to fly. 7 out of 10. And that was the last classic Donald Duck short I have to review. But this review isn't over yet, for I still have the Mickey Mouse Works shorts to cover. Mickey Mouse Works shorts were featured on Disc 2 of Volume 4 of Walt Disney Treasures Donald Duck. For those who don't know, Mickey Mouse Works was a Saturday morning cartoon from the late 90s, featured on the defunct block called Disney's One Saturday Morning on ABC. Mickey Mouse Works was the first animated TV series starring Mickey and Pals. It was a modern revival of the classic Mickey Mouse shorts, and in my opinion, it was the best revival of Mickey Mouse. It wasn't a preschooler show, and it wasn't an over-the-top hyperactive fest like the rudest shorts. It didn't quite match the quality of the theatrical classics from the late 30s through 40s, but it came close. It just was a lot more toned down, of course, but it still had some risque humor here and there. I at least liked them a lot better than the rudest shorts, which I honestly never got into. I remember tuning into Mickey Mouse Works until its short life ended, and I remember loving the show. It brought a number of laughs. Not only did it do a great job at bringing Mickey and Pals into modern times with familiar and new stories to tell, but it's also responsible for giving more spotlight to some very obscure characters, including Mickey's rival Mortimer Mouse, Ludwig von Drake, and, of course, Daisy Duck. I mean, before Mickey Mouse Works, did you ever notice how Daisy Duck was never on screen with Mickey or Minnie in any of the classic cartoons? The only short she was in to include Mickey and Minnie was in the short Crazy for Daisy, but they didn't share any screen time at all. For Mickey and Minnie were just brief cameos at the beginning, and Daisy didn't show up till the very end. So yeah, it's crazy to think about that. As important as Daisy was to Donald Duck, and as important as Donald was to the Mickey Mouse character and all that, it's crazy to think that Daisy and Mickey were never on screen together. Not even during Mickey's birthday party was Daisy invited. So, Mickey Mouse Works reintroduced Daisy to be the 6th member of the original main 5. This show gave Daisy a bit more personality than the classic shorts, to the point where people are still wondering when Minnie is going to get the same personality treatment. In Mouse Works, Daisy was a lot quirkier and a lot of the times ends up being an oblivious nuisance, like in the short where she tags along with Mickey and Minnie's romantic trip, not getting the hint that Mickey and Minnie wanted a romantic evening alone. It also marked the first time Daisy would get her longest-running voice actress, still going, in fact, Trace McNeil, though it took a while before Tress took over the role, for some of the earliest episodes had a different voice for her. Before Mickey Mouse Works, I didn't find Daisy that interesting of a character, but man, Mickey Mouse Works really had her stand out as the quirky diva she is known as now, and it just works so well with that character. Mouse Works introduced the idea of Daisy being Minnie's best friend as well, which is something that still carries over into modern forms of Mickey Mouse media. The show itself was decent. It was a variety show split up between shorts ranging from 3 minutes, 7 minutes, and sometimes even full-length 22-minute skits. Now, I remember my older sister and I loved tuning into the show every Saturday, and it gave us a few laughs, especially the Donald Duck shorts, but then one day, it just disappeared with no reruns. Unfortunately, the show was a ratings disaster. It just didn't get the views that Disney was looking for, despite how hard Disney advertised the show, even showing full skits during ad breaks on Disney Channel to promote the show. I mean, that was how I found out about the show back then. I remember Disney Channel advertising it and saying you had to see it on ABC. And to think, it probably, I never understand why businesses do this. I get that they're trying to make people pay for a different service, but really, they got the channel right there. It would have made more sense for the show to just air directly on Disney Channel after school hours or before school. But no, they didn't, and that's what I think really hurt the ratings here. So Disney tried sneakily salvaging what little they had of the show into their next show, which I'm sure a lot of people are more familiar with, because I know that there are a lot of people who never even heard of Mickey Mouse Works, but they are familiar with the show that came after. Disney's House of Mouse. It was a crossover show where Mickey opened a nightclub on Main Street, and his pals helped him run the show to entertain a full house of many Disney characters. Again, this was another great show with a lot of witty and clever jokes built off of different Disney characters, interacting with each other, along with some great obscure references and jokes that purist Disney fans may get a chuckle out of. However, while most people were lured into the show with promises of it being a way to see all of your favorite Disney heroes and villains in one place, it really was a ratings trap, for most of the show contained Mickey putting on a cartoon for the audience to watch, and the cartoons he would show were recycled skits from Disney's failed show, Mickey Mouse Works. Despite that, the cartoons they showed were still pretty funny, and the crossover moments were still good. It was nice to see Disney try to give Mickey Mouse Works a second chance, even if they had to trick the audience with another show in order to get it a revival, to this day, people are still begging Disney to release the show on Disney+. Also, a revival of the show that includes CG characters, Pixar characters, Star Wars, Marvel, and Fox characters, that would also be nice, but either way, even if you've never heard of Mickey Mouse Works, chances are you've unknowingly already seen the show because you've seen House of Mouse. Unfortunately, I believe not every skit from Mickey Mouse Works was repurposed for House of Mouse, and there is no way of buying either full series of House of Mouse or Mickey Mouse Works. Again, Disney Plus, release these shows. Long intro aside, Volume 4 of Donald Duck includes a number of Donald shorts that were included on Mickey Mouse Works, but not all of them, unfortunately. Anyways, let's get started. Bird Brain Donald. While on a date with Donald, Daisy is having fun taking photos at a zoo. Donald is getting hungry and wants to leave. Daisy says she wants to take a photo of the Araquan bird first, so most of the cartoon is Donald trying to take a photo of the pesky bird, but failing throughout.
That's right.
I'm bummed out they didn't recycle any of the sound clips of the Araquan bird from his original appearances, nor did they try getting anyone to really voice him to mimic his sounds. I mean, they got Frank Welker to make nibbler sounds, if anything, but that's about it. Did they step onto the set of Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog or something? The short really does feel like it's on the cheap side. There's a point where the artist just gives up and uses blank colors for backgrounds, and they're a real eyesore to look at. One thing that annoys me about Mouseworks is that, unlike the classic shorts, which made up original scores for each of the shorts, Mouseworks relied on reusing the same background music over and over across each short. Each character basically had theme music that played in front of their intros, and they'd get recycled throughout the entire show, and it gets old, honestly. In this short's case, the only two tracks it uses are Donald's theme and the Araquan bird's annoying jingle throughout, and I loved how the classic shorts just had different music in each short, and how they sync with the action or comedy. I unfortunately cannot say the same for both this or House of Mouse. The short ends with the Araquan bird swapping places with Donald and Daisy falls for him. Yeah, this short honestly stunk. Just because I said this is a good show doesn't mean that every skit works. It does have a few funny visual gags and faces, but it's overall a boring short. It's already been done better in Clown of the Jungle, 3 out of 10. Donald and the Big Nut. This is a short I only remember for its comical ending. Oh god, Chip and Dale just look so off-model in this short. As Chip and Dale make a mess in Donald's yard, a growth product lands on their oak tree growing a giant nut.
What a great big giant nut!
That's what she said. Donald overhears the radio talking about a giant nut contest, and Donald wants to enter the nut into the contest tomorrow to win a $1 million prize. But Chip and Dale fight Donald for it. The short ends with Donald winning the contest, but the chipmunks eat the acorn from the inside, leading to this. Honestly, the ending is the only funny thing from the short. The rest of it is pretty boring, and it's honestly a very ugly cartoon to look at. I mean, most of the animation on the show was very cheap and stiff. I mean, not the best when it came to Disney TV animation. It did occasionally get some visually stunning looking shorts. Unfortunately, none of the ones included on this DVD are really any of the really good looking ones. So, overall, it's a very forgettable short, but it has a funny ending. 4 out of 10. Donald's charmed date. Donald and Daisy go on a date to an amusement park, and Daisy is very superstitious about bad luck, and Donald doesn't believe in it. Over the course of the short, Daisy carries a lot of lucky charms to avoid bad luck with good things happening to her, while Donald goes charmless and triggers bad luck. I remember the House of Mouse episode that featured this episode did a really funny edit mocking TV censorship, or during the part where Donald gets catapulted onto a roller coaster track and through a bunch of other dangerous rides and stuff like that, the cartoon gets paused as these chimps spoofing off the FCC called the Censor Monkeys interrupt to tell Mickey that they think this part is too violent and they demand to have changes be made to make it more kid appropriate. So we see ridiculous changes get reanimated into the scene, like Donald being forced to wear a helmet and pillows, and they replace all the violent crashing sound effects with really cartoony sound effects. It was honestly a funny scene, and it still holds true to a number of content in both TV and video games that still get censored to this very day. Seriously, censorship can just screw off. Right when Donald starts believing in luck, Daisy receives a fortune claiming that there is no luck, so she ditches the charms and is convinced that Donald was right all along, and because of that, she decides to drag him onto the scariest ride in the park, knowing that nothing bad will happen. And so, in the end, of course, Daisy survives a lot of close calls while Donald gets hurt throughout the ride, and in the end, it turns out they're the lucky 1,000,000th riders, and as a reward, they get to go on the ride one more time, and Donald is annoyed. This one is actually pretty funny. Even if the plot is very basic, the funny facial expressions and voice acting are what really helped this one stand out from the other ones so far. Nothing amazing, but it still has some good chuckles. 6 out of 10. Donald's dinner date. Donald goes to Daisy hoping she'll forgive him for an unspecified reason, and Daisy says she doesn't want to see him again because he has too bad a temper. As Donald realizes he loses his temper too much, he promises he'll never lose it again. Daisy gives him another chance and allows him to take her out to dinner, and their waiter happens to be Goofy. Now, you think this cartoon would be about Donald losing his patience with Goofy and getting angry in the end, but in a funny twist, it's Daisy who gets impatient and angry in the end. This short has a lot of funny moments with Goofy.
Hey, I ordered a steak.
Come on, steak!
Come on, steak!
Yeehaw! I win! Double or nothing! Bet you thought I was gonna drop them. I'll get that.
How did they get away with that? Daisy loses her temper while Donald enjoyed his meal until he gets the bill, causing him to flip out alongside Daisy. This one is pretty funny. It has funny gags and great voice acting. 8 out of 10. Donald's failed fourth. Donald is setting up for the perfect spot to watch the 4th of July fireworks with Daisy. After a rough day of struggling throughout, Donald finally gets it set up.
Perfect. Now that's more like it.
Only to find out he has it facing the wrong way. I mean, couldn't they easily just turn the seats around or something? But now, if this were a classic Disney short, it likely would have ended with Daisy being angry and ditching Donald. But instead, it ends with Daisy saying that she thinks the view is just fine, as we see Donald and Daisy getting a gorgeous moonlit view. It's a pretty wholesome ending for once. It's both funny and cute. 8 out of 10. Donald's Rocket Ruckus. Donald works at an amusement park and won't let his nephews on a ride, for they don't meet the height requirements, and he keeps cheating the requirement. And the boys try sneaking onto the ride many times in many hilarious attempts. The funniest and most messed up part is when Donald thinks they're in a tall lady disguise, and this happens.
You gotta be kidding. That's far enough.
I laugh so hard every time I see this. It's bad enough that Donald tore off a woman's clothes, but the thought that the lady is so tall that she's constantly losing balance as she walks. This part is just comedy gold, and the cartoon gets even funnier from here. The boys get onto the ride, and Donald decides to speed the ride up so fast to its highest setting till the ride flies loose like a rocket. Eventually, the rocket crashes, and the boys were excited over the ride and want to go again. They see Donald passed out, and to mess with Donald, the boys squirt ketchup on themselves to scare Donald into thinking they were brutally killed and it was all his fault. My god, the short just keeps getting edgier.
I'd give anything to hear your voice again.
This one is fantastic. Even as an adult, I'm still cracking up at this one. 9 out of 10. Donald's Shellshots. I remember this was my favorite Mickey Mouse Works cartoon as a kid, and I still find it hilarious. Donald is a child photographer and has to give a picture to a troublemaking baby turtle named Shelby.
I want a picture of my little Shelby.
That laugh just cracked me and my sister up every time as a kid, and it still makes me chuckle. Dang you, Jeff Bennett. Donald is trying to take the kid's picture, but Shelby keeps trolling Donald throughout.
I'm a clown.
The running gag with Daisy thinking Donald is a cross-dresser is pretty funny, but I can imagine there are going to be people today who find this gag offensive, but whatever.
Oh, hiya, Daisy.
So this is what you do all day. It's true. Oh, isn't that sweet?
Now, how about taking a picture of his brothers and sisters? Sorry.
I still think this is a very funny cartoon with a hilarious foil for Donald. Shelby would go on to antagonize Donald in 2 additional shorts and even be a guest character in an episode of House of Mouse. Unfortunately, none of those episodes are on this DVD, but either way, this was the best of the Shelby shorts. The others had their moments, but they weren't as non-stop funny as this one. But I still consider this my favorite Mickey Mouse Works cartoon. It was non-stop hilarious as a kid, and I still get a good laugh out of it. It's just a fun and hilarious chase cartoon. 9 out of 10. Donald's Valentine Dollar, a silent cartoon of Donald wanting to buy Daisy Valentine chocolates with his last dollar, but it blows away as Donald chases it around and causes trouble with kite flyers. It's trying to pay tribute to the classic silly symphonies where the music tells most of the story, but it honestly fails. The music is mostly a loop of piano notes and it just doesn't sync or match with the motion on screen. Why can no cartoon nowadays match the art of syncing music with animation? It's like the only movies I can think of out of the top of my head that can do it really well are the Kung Fu Panda movies. In the end, Donald is too late, the box of chocolates was sold out, and he's bummed out, but Daisy comes to surprise him with a box of chocolates, the same ones that he meant to buy her. It's a cute ending, but this short was pretty boring. 4 out of 10. Music Store Donald. A music-themed episode and the backgrounds resemble the art style of the Adventuresome Music shorts. Well played. In this short, Donald and Pete are lazy workers at a music shop, and are put on the spot that whoever sells an instrument to the next customer gets to keep their job and the other gets fired. I hate Pete's design in a lot of these Mickey Mouse Works shorts. Why is he gray like an old man in these? His appearance in House of Mouse was luckily a lot more faithful to his 40s design, but Daisy walks in and is looking for a romantic instrument that plays romantic songs. As most of Donald and Pete's attempts don't catch her attention.
So what do you think romantic music is?
Something like la 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 la. Isn't that romantic?
To Donald and Pete's confusement, they play different styles of Pop Goes the Weasel. In the end, Pete crams bagpipes into Donald and plays him like one. Daisy is sold and buys Donald, and Pete gets to keep his job, but he gets punished to clean up after all the destruction he and Donald caused, and he also has to pay for the damages. Donald gets a happy ending though, as he gets a girl he finds pretty and gets to play music for her. It's a funny short, 8 out of 10. Survival of the Woodchucks, the last cartoon I have to review. Donald, as a scout leader, wants the boys to pass the survival test, just like he did. In a Tex Avery-style gag, he needs the boys to reach a ridiculously long trail, but he keeps sabotaging their attempts. The boys not only find out that Donald sabotaged them, but they learn that he never even passed the survival test.
Survive what?
Well, that was brutal. I thought he was about to throw a grenade after him. Donald chases the boys all the way to the end of the trail, and the boys award themselves their survival badges, and even hand one to Donald, saying he's not a fraud anymore. It has a few funny moments, but it felt way too familiar to other shorts I've seen, but the ending was cute. 5 out of 10. Well, I started reviewing the Walt Disney Treasures DVDs about 2 years ago, starting with Mickey Mouse in Living Color. I might have to redub that review sometimes because my mic quality on that was really bad. This 3-part Donald Duck review was the longest set of reviews I've ever had to do, while just reviewing all of these Walt Disney Treasures cartoons is the biggest review project I've ever done. I want to thank those who sat down for many hours to watch these reviews, whether you've grown up with these shorts and are wanting to hear someone else's thoughts on them, or if you're just learning about them for the first time. This was very exhausting, but I've had fun sharing with you all that I love and dislike about all these classic cartoons that I'm so passionate about. I knew I had to save Donald Duck for last, not only because he had the most colored cartoons to cover, but mostly because Donald Duck is my favorite cartoon character. There are a number of reasons why Donald Duck was Disney's #1 star, and it's more than just his funny voice. Donald was a reflection of many viewers. Everyone gets angry over life seeming to be out to get us, and Donald is a character that reminds us that it could be worse. Donald is a character who puts up with a lot of lousy misfortunes. Sometimes he deserved them, and other times they were uncalled for. But no matter what, Donald never gives up. He keeps on willing to put up a fight, no matter how many times he loses. Not only were Donald's temper tantrums hilarious, but they're just a reminder of why we as people need to control our tempers, and not lose them like Donald, and have the same unlucky fates as him. Donald is a very flawed character, just like people in real life. No one is perfect. Donald is neither a hero nor a villain. He is very much an anti-hero. It's very hard to make anti-heroes into likable and sympathetic characters like Donald. There are many shorts where Donald is portrayed as a bully, and usually roles like that would be reserved for a villain, yet Donald is the main character of those cartoons. And despite his bullying behavior, we still end up rooting for him. We see Donald get angry over justifiable reasons that people to this day still struggle with, whether it's car repairs, dating troubles, trying to get to sleep, dealing with pesky insects, pesky relatives, or people who make fun of you for how you look or talk. No matter how rude Donald can be, deep down, I see a character who just wants to be accepted and respected for who he is, and he's mad at the world for not giving him a chance. And I can truly relate with that. Donald is a complicated character. He's a character who I, as an audience, can laugh at, yet at the same time, I can feel sorry for him and wish things would get better for him. I can't say I've ever felt this way about a cartoon character, but Donald Duck is a character I love today as much as I did as a child. While not all of his cartoons are flawless masterpieces, they are still full of great animation, hilarious voice acting from Clarence Nash, and even his modern voice, Tony Anselmo. I am so grateful that a man like Walt Disney was able to bring the world so many laughs and entertaining moments, not only from Donald, Pluto, Goofy, Mickey, or even Oswald, but for everything. I still cherish the memories Disney gave me for over the past 30 years of my life, and I wish to see Disney of today restore a bit of that wonder, but modern Disney unfortunately has a very long way to go, and I honestly don't see it getting better anytime soon, but I really wish to be proven wrong. It has been tough to take the time to make these types of reviews. I don't have as much free time anymore, since I now work 40 hours a week, and it's not easy making non-profit videos like these on YouTube with such little amount of time that I get nowadays. I probably won't be making a big review like this ever again, but I still plan to make smaller reviews for movies in the future. If I ever do decide to make another review on classic cartoons, I might consider reviewing the 3 Blu-ray volumes for Tex Avery's Screwball Classics, for those are some of the funniest cartoons I've ever seen. However, I don't think I'll ever be reviewing the entirety of the Looney Tunes Gold Collection. Oh man. Considering how many shorts and discs that has, that would be even longer than the Walt Disney Treasure DVDs I made combined. Again, thank you all so much for watching these reviews, and have a fantastic day.